Well, hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the New Construction Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Anya Chrysanthon, and I'm really excited to introduce my guest for today, Kody Smith. Kody is president and founding member with NoviHome. And I'm so happy that you're able to join me today. Welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you. I'm excited to be here. So thank you very much for having me on, and then again excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we always like to kick things off by telling our listeners a little bit about who is Kody and what is it that you guys do at Novi Homes.
No, absolutely. So Cody is, my story is pretty fun. Grew up in, my dad was we call him a serial entrepreneur. So he built and sold a number of businesses in a number of different industries, which was an interesting upbringing for us. That was back when startup wasn't a real awesome word that is used all the time, and founder wasn't in every LinkedIn profile. Some years were fantastic and some years were a little rough for us as a family, but each one of my brothers and my sister, we got a really in-depth on-hands learning of business and growing companies, and we had the opportunity to be in a number of different industries. So that's kind of, I sold we had a computer store back in the early, late 90s, early 2000s. Sold my first PC at 14, and then went back in the back room and build it out. I'm not a programmer, but I do understand technology. And then grew, career-wise, went to a number of different companies. We had an office supply company that we sold to Staples, and I spent some time at Staples. And then before NoviHome, we have a sister company that we talk about a lot because we stole a lot of our technology ideas at Novi from our sister company, TouchMD. So spent a lot of years at TouchMD, which is a patient consultation software in the medical industry, primarily plastic surgery and cosmetic dermatology. And that's where we got a lot of our ideas for buyer experience and launched our platform from that foundation. And so that's career-wise. Personally, I'm a father of four, happily married, and somehow juggling, a startup and launching into the builder space and life, and more importantly than my career, I think is definitely my family.
So it sounds like entrepreneurship was definitely in your blood, so you couldn't avoid it. Yeah, I don't know how you do it with four kids and quarantining. Where are you guys located?
So we're based out of a small town in southern Utah, the town Cedar City, population 30,000. And so we're in the tech hub of Utah. Utah, for people that don't know, is a major tech hub and innovation area. But we're south of Salt Lake, maybe 3.5 hours. So when we explain, hey, we're in little, I always tell everyone I'm just a country bumpkin that knows a little bit about technology. Southern Utah is home.
Very, very cool. Yeah, I have a friend in that area, the founder of Atlas RTX, Bassam.
Mm-hmm.
He's a really great guy, and he's
Yeah.
here in the woods as well. So I'm familiar with all the tech explosion that's happening with you guys over there. So why builder space? Like, tell us a little bit more about NoviHome, what you guys do, and why did you decide to get into the builder space of all the spaces?
Yeah, it was a super interesting journey for us, and builder space wasn't the only space that we looked at. We actually had some experience in, some of our founders had some experience back in the mid 2000s in a company they had launched called Fusion Media that really went after master plan communities and particularly Jack Nicklaus golf course communities. We had moved, obviously with the recession, we had moved, and from that pivot, we had created a company called TouchMD, and that's our sister company that we still own today. And TouchMD really gave us the opportunity to understand experience. And in the medical world, it's patient experience. And in the builder world, obviously it's buyer experience. Um, as TouchMD started to grow and we captured the majority of the market share there, we looked at other opportunities to take our technology. Honestly, we looked at OSHA compliance and some opportunities there, but we kept circling back. From the mid 2000s, we had a couple clients that kept reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, you guys really need to get back in this space." And so we started to evaluate it. We're all about buyer experience and delivering an experience that's interactive and using technology. And, so we started to do some market research. We went in and met with a few of the largest builders in Utah as a consumer, kind of like a secret shopper type thing. And, we were looking at homes to purchase in the 500,000 to 600,000 range, and we got a black and white plat map and a color floor plan, and we were like, wait a minute, that's it? I'm going to spend $600,000 on this home. You just gave me a floor plan that's on a piece of paper. And so then we knew there was a major gap in the builder industry. There was a gap in, and we like to, I have a shirt on today. I don't know if you can see it.
I do. Love that.
Yeah, contact to contract. So we see, as we launched into the builder space over 2.5 years ago, a lot of companies are doing a great job with their websites and Facebook or Instagram and delivering leads to their online sales counselor or to the model home. But then on the model home, what happens? You hand out a brochure, the intake forms are very archaic and threatening to the consumer. And then you get through the process and you sell them a home, and then they go into a CRM or some type of, builder tracking technology. And so we see a major issue from the first point of contact to contract, and that's really the category that we're living in and the category that we're redefining. So that's how we landed on where we're at today.
I love it. So you've touched on so many great points, and I'd like to unpack them a little bit more. So first thing you're saying is, okay, you did this secret shop of looking at builders at 5 to 600K, and you got the paper floor plan. And if you think about today's consumer, and I think the pandemic is very much responsible for accelerating this, is that the fact that we're very comfortable shopping online for shoes, for everything, right? I mean, even cars now. I mean, a few years ago, if you said like, oh, people are going to be buying used cars online, you'd be like, what? And now it's happening, and the big reason why it's happening is because you can see that car from every single angle. And so that when that car is being dropped off in your driveway, your expectation as a consumer meets that reality of what is actually being dropped off in front of you. And this is the craziest part about buying a new home. And because I personally have been there on the sales side of selling this, 500K $1 million home, and literally laying the plan in front of the consumer and drawing by hand, like, it's like this, but this window is going to be like that over here. And I mean, I think I was pretty damn good at sales, but there was always mismatch, and there was a lot of unhappiness at the end of the day, because I can't represent to you exactly what it's going to look like, especially if this home has never been built before, if it's a custom home and we don't have a model home for it. And most people have really, really hard time visualizing. And this is crazy that we can literally buy a shoe and look at it from every angle inside out. But when it comes to buying the most expensive thing that most people will buy in their lifetime, we can't show them. We can't set that proper expectation for here's the end product. And I think that is a huge reason why people abandon the idea of buying new. You know, like we've been talking about Zillow study for years that said, you know, in the beginning of home buying process, something of upwards of like 70% of people say that they would consider buying new home. And at the end of the day, only about 9% of those consumers actually go through with it. Now, Zillow did come out with a recent study for this year, the 2020, and I think they said that the search for new homes was up by 50%, which is huge for our industry. And again, this is a huge opportunity for us. And in my mind, if we can finally bridge that gap between the, you know, what consumers expecting and actually what they get at the end of the day, and it matches, then there's going to be absolutely no competition when it comes to deciding between buying new or a used home. Because let's face it, who wants an old toilet?
Right, absolutely. No, totally agree. And that's one reason why we were so excited to launch into the builder space and work with builders, is we saw the opportunity to really um, change that. Again, first point of contact, the contract. What's going on? They walk in the model home, they call your OSC, to the time that they close on that. Um, that's where we saw a real great opportunity for us to launch our product.
Mhm. So can you talk to us a little bit more about what, you know, what is it that you guys offer? And because
Mhm.
you're speaking about, okay, you know, the consumer has certain experience leading up to the model home, right? Maybe they've interacted with you online with your OSC. Now they have an appointment, they come in person. And now how does that experience match what they're getting inside the model home? So can you talk to us a little bit
Mhm.
about the couple of apps that you guys have, and you know, what's the why behind you creating those particular apps?
Yeah. So, and again, I'm gonna revert back to our history in another industry, and what we've learned. But we feel that apps are the future. You're talking about buying shoes or clothes. I doubt you're going to www.amazon.com. You're probably pulling that app up and scrolling through some things. My wife has an app called Zulily that is going to make me poor someday. Um, but that's how consumers are engaging. That's how consumers are shopping. And when I explain this to people, I say, okay, Facebook.com. No one goes to Facebook.com. We all have the Facebook app. We don't go to Instagram.com. We go to the Instagram app. So we believe the apps are the future, and it's not just us. I mean, all the analytics. I think there was a Zillow study that in 2019, 73% of all home buyers used a smartphone to find their home or to search for their home. So analytics and different things in the industry are telling us the consumer wants to purchase part of their purchase. They want that to be smartphone driven. And so, for us, that's app driven. So all of our technology is app based. We have a app that the buyer will download on their phone, and they can look at all the models and live updates on what's available in the community, move-in ready product. And then the second part of our technology is our ability. So we're a big analytic company. We can track, because we're app based, we can do real-time tracking of exactly what your buyer is looking at and delivering that back to your sales team. So the sales team, they all have their own app called NoviFocus, that says, okay, you met with Anya last week in the model home, and you guys walked through the model, and she went home, downloaded the app from her Android device, and on Saturday she looked at these 4 models in these 2 communities, and on Sunday she looked at this. And so we prepare, using our platform and the analytics, which is really the future of smart selling, right? We can tell the agent or the builder agent, hey, this is what your buyer's interested in, or they're not interested in. So it's some really interesting technology that we're pushing out into the space.
Great. So here's the question I want to ask you. I think it's awesome to know what your customers are looking at, to have that level of intel, like, oh, this person is on the website right now looking at this floor
Mhm.
plan. So it may be a great idea to follow up with them. But it's also kind of creepy, right? Because now you're kind of big brotherish situation here. Like we're watching every single thing that the consumer is doing. So how do we approach that consumer? Like say I get notification and it says, hey, Mrs. Smith is on the app right now, or she was on the app last night looking at a Victoria floor plan. Now I'm thinking, okay, probably a good idea for me to follow up with her and see what the next step would be. Maybe I have a Victoria floor plan in another community that I can show her. How do I engage Mrs. Smith in this conversation without her being like, whoa, are you watching
Yeah, no,
what I'm doing?
yeah. And honestly, we train on this. This is something we train when we go out and launch each builder and train their sales team. We say, okay, do not call Miss Smith and say, hey, I saw that you were on the app last night looking at the Victoria model, and just so happens I have one in another community. Now that is creepy. So the way we present, and we're salespeople, right? The way we present the information that we have, because at the end of the day, we want them to have a great experience, and we want, selfishly, for the builder, we want to sell homes. So the more homes we can sell with the better info that we have, the better for me on my commission side and for my builder on moving on to the next product. So we always train, look, don't call them and say, hey, I saw you. The better conversation is, hey, Miss Smith, I know we met last week and we talked about a few things here in the model. I know you were interested in that Victoria model. I know we don't have it in the community that we were at, but we've got a couple other communities and we have that model available. Do you want to set up a time and go walk through it? From a consumer perspective, when it's presented that way, I'm like, yeah, I was just thinking that. I want to go do that. That's you're telling me what I want to do. Um, you know, that is a very good experience. Your salesperson is now ahead of the problem. They are using the analytics the way that they should, and the consumer, the buyer, is getting to that purchasing point faster, and the experience along the way is much better for them. So that's kind of how we look at it. It can be very people look at it as intrusive. I look at it as, we're not looking at how much you make. We're looking at which models you're looking at, which communities. And from a sales perspective, I am now armed with the data to be a little more effective than I am just handing you a brochure.
Yes, yes. So I think as long as you're approaching it, yeah, you definitely want to start a conversation with, "Hey, I
Yes.
saw you doing this," because that definitely can put a lot of people off. But I love this idea of having almost like a yeah, you're getting basically an inside look into your client's mind in a way as to like what they're thinking and which direction they're moving. When it comes to follow up, it gives you a huge advantage. I'm a huge person when it comes to follow up and the importance of follow up. We know that consumers, it takes 5 to 12 follow ups to engage somebody to get that across that line. So it's very important that you stay on top of them. And I think one of the biggest things that a lot of salespeople struggle with when it comes to follow up is that they just don't know what to say when they're following up. And so when you have that inside look into what your customers are doing on your website or on the app, it gives you much easier conversation starter to follow up with something that is relevant to them, because you're not just poking and going this direction that direction, where you kind of getting an idea as to what generally they're interested in. So it is relevant to them, and then it's valuable because, like you said, consumers feel that, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about that. What a great idea. So you're actually moving that conversation forward. So I'm a huge, huge fan of this idea, because at the end of the day, your follow up absolutely must be relevant. It has to be valuable to your customer in order to move that relationship forward. And I know as a salesperson, that is a huge obstacle for a lot of salespeople doing a follow-up. So that idea is phenomenal for making it easier. No excuse not to follow
No,
up.
right. And as we look, you just talk about, I love to study sales and the kind of the what we do as salespeople. But a lot of times when we're nervous on the follow-up, it's just because we don't think they're interested, or we don't know, again, we don't know what to say. So if you don't have some type of analytics or some type of information being fed to you, you basically have a list of buyers, and you go in Monday morning and you start calling them, and hey, Miss Smith, just wanted to follow up on our meeting last week. Yeah, I'm not interested, and the conversation, it can be a little threatening, and we get nervous on the sales side. But when have analytics to back up what you're calling about, you're more confident. And confidence is king in sales. When you're confident, you see good salespeople all the time, and when they're confident, I mean, those people, whether it's a car salesman or selling homes, or it doesn't matter what, the confident ones are the ones that always are at the top, right? So yeah, we love to love to watch our builder teams as they start to pull in analytics, and we'll go in 6 months later for a follow-up, and they're like, I don't know how I sold before without this. So it's been a lot of fun for us.
Yes, that's nice when you have a tool that is not only fun and easy to use, but also helps you sell homes at the end of the day. And that's obviously what we care about. Now, Kody, you mentioned several times on the interactive experience when it comes to the way our customers experience, whether it's on our website, whether it's interacting in a model home with us. Can you talk more about why interactive experience is such a hot topic right now, and what it is, and why customers are really craving that interactive experience, and how is it different from something that's maybe static and doesn't change?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of reasons, and we could talk for hours, just on on that topic, honestly. But as we launch out into various markets across the U.S., and as we spend so much time, truly understanding buyers, and how we can build technology that grabs them. The buyer today is accustomed to making a decision sitting on their couch at home, typically at night. They are very seldom, even if you go to car sales right now, a lot of us, when we buy a car, we kind of already know what the price point that we're willing to pay, and which car we want with which interior and what colored rims. And so it's the same thing. It's no different. Our consumers across the board in every industry are learning to shop via some interactive platform, right? Some kind of technology tool, whether that's your website, whether that's with us and having your app on the consumer's phone. Those consumers want to go home at night. They want to sit down on their couch. Maybe they're like me. It's 8:30. I just put the kids to bed, and now I want to look at. I looked at that model home on Saturday. I want to go back and revisit the experience, and maybe I want to look at some of the other stuff. So consumers are trending that way in every category, in every study. The other thing is, you have a lot of people with our builders that we're working with. We have a lot of buyers that are leaving large cities and going into the suburbs, or going into an Idaho or Colorado. And so they're doing a lot of their shopping is virtual now. And I think as a builder, you need to be asking yourself, okay, how am I getting in front of those buyers that don't live 10 minutes away from my model home? We have a builder in Alaska, and the majority of his buyers come from Phoenix because of, the Air Force and the different bases that they have. And for him, how do I get in front of my buyer in Phoenix that's going to be in Alaska in 6 months? And how do I stay engaged with them? And that's what builders need to be asking themselves, because as consumers, that's what we're wanting. That's the experience we want. So again, we could talk about that and non-threatening, being able to make a decision on my couch instead of sitting in front of you in the model home. There's a ton of reasons that is happening, and it's a trend that's going to continue.
Yes, I think one of the most important things that builders can take away from this whole pandemic shift, and again, the acceleration in technology and how um, consumers feel comfortable using technology to purchase things, is that once it's over, whenever that is, um,
Mhm.
it's not going back. It's not going to go back to business as usual. Like, yeah, maybe you'll have more people coming to your model home and announced on the weekends when things are actually, kind of back to normal. But chances are those people are showing up at your model home because they've already been on your website. They've seen every single floor plan, virtual tour, and they're ready to pretty much again solidify that decision that what they saw on your website matches what is presented to them in person, and they can actually touch and feel that final product to say, yes, this matches my expectation, I'm actually ready to move forward. And to your point with remote buyers, again, this is a trend that's not going to stop anytime soon, right? I mean, there are states and cities that are now paying people to move. Like, I just saw an article that, you know, if you wanted to move to like a remote area in Kansas, you're gonna get 15K or something like that on your taxes. And I was
Right.
like, hey babe, what do you think about that? Kansas looks good to me, with all their stakes, right? So it is something that is going to continue as a trend. And I think it's really, really important that um, we do have that experience for the buyer sitting on the couch saying, okay, you know what? I feel comfortable enough to buy this house. And I think a few years ago, when we first started to have this conversation about buy it now option and the ability to purchase home remotely, it was like, whoa, no way, right? But now it's happening. And especially if you look at the buyer demographic, it's the millennials, and a lot of millennials are saying, yes, I feel comfortable with buying it online. And that's great for our industry. And again, I think as the technology advances, and we're able to show and most importantly prove to the buyer that what they see on the website will actually match that final product, and that's the goal, to have it match. So one of the great ideas that I heard recently from someone is, why not build a replica virtual model home of your model home, so that when your customers come
Mm.
through the door and they can say, wow, you know what I just saw on your website is exactly the same thing that I'm seeing here. So it's like a proof of concept to them to say, yeah, like it matches. And so now when I view your other virtual tours, I know that it's going to match the final product. And at the end of the day, that's where we're trying to get to, is the ability to trust the builders. And at the end of my experience, I have the expectation that matches the result, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. That's a super interesting concept. Um, but yeah, I think everything's trending that way. I get the question a lot. Well, are we not going to need salespeople? No, you're always going to need salespeople. Um, but the
Salespeople who
more
adopt
you can offer your
technology,
buyers,
right?
that's right. No, 100%. I mean, you gotta be changing. The climate's changing, especially with builders. It's so funny, as we launched in, we came from the medical, and medical is early adopters on technology all the time. Um, and we came into the builder world, 2.5 years ago. We were talking about apps and the ability to track and the ability to, hey, we can show, as you guys launch into pre-sale product, we can show you every buyer over the last 120 days that has looked at that product in the pre-sale area. We had so many builders that had glazed over eyes looking at us like, what are you talking about? But then COVID changed everything. The buyers have been there for a long time. The consumer has been trending that way for a long time, and COVID changed everything. So those builders that had the glazed over look in their eye, like, I don't know about technology, are all of a sudden like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
Now I'm with you. So it's interesting. I'm excited to watch where the industry goes. I still think there's there's so much technology that can be introduced, and things that, as long as it's functional, right? There's some crazy ideas out there that I think, wow, that's a cool idea, but I don't know if I'm ready to pay $150,000 price tag for that. But yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to look back on the builder space 4 years from now, coming out of the pandemic, and see how our teams are selling homes in the market.
Yeah, I think the time is super exciting time right now to be in new home sales. And I think especially, yeah, at least the next 5 years are going to be booming and really, really fun, great opportunity. So Kody, thank you so much for being on today. Now, if somebody wants to connect with you, if they want to learn more about your company, what's the best way to find you? Where do you hang out?
So www.novi, N-O-V-I, B as in Victor, E as in Igloo, home.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all the social platforms. We're also Kody, K-O-D-Y, at novihome.com is my email address.
I was going to say, you don't have the most, SEO friendly name, right? Kody Smith.
I know. There's just a few of us out there.
Yes. So, well, it was a pleasure to get to know you, Kody. Thank you so much for being a guest. And hopefully I'll get to catch up with you in the near future, hopefully in person somewhere.
That's right. At a show, hopefully.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Yep. Thank you.